and welcome to the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from 104.9. I'm Paul Kretschmer. Today we'll be hearing about a National Apologetics and Evangelism Conference with two representatives from that institution, Judge Phil Ginn and Adam Tucker.
I've been the president for almost 2 years here at Southern Evangelical, and Adam, who knows more about the conference than anybody else, because he's actually the one that's in charge of planning for it and that sort of thing here, is our director of marketing, amongst other things. So he has been doing the conference now, 5 or 6 years?
I think 4. I've been helping out with it for a number of years, but been in charge of it for about 4.
So I'll let him tell you a little bit about it, Paul, but Adam's the go-to guy to try to line up the speakers and that sort of thing.
I'd like to know from you, Judge Ginn, for the listeners, why it's important that an apologetics and evangelism conference take place. There are conferences all over the place. What makes this something, and maybe Adam, you can chime in on that too, what makes it significant for Southern Evangelical to be involved?
Well, Paul, I'm going to say something that's a little bit self-serving, I guess, but we have a rather unique way of working apologetics in everything that we teach here. And we're not only dealing with the reasonableness of the Christian belief from a biblical standpoint, but also the ethical part of why we believe, and the way that we believe about Christianity. And I think our culture, anybody who is very observant knows that our culture is in great upheaval. I know that Barna and others have been doing some research, and I think it was Barna that showed that 54% of Americans, including evangelical Christians, believe that truth is subjective with no moral absolutes. And that's leading our country down various rabbit holes. The more scary condition is twofold. One, 41% of senior pastors, only 41% have a biblical worldview. That means 59%, almost 2/3, do not have a biblical worldview. If you take that back down to children and youth pastors, it's almost 90% of them do not have a biblical worldview. So how can we expect our culture, how can we expect our people to understand the truth of the gospel if our pastors don't understand and believe it?
Yeah, I would just add to that, our founders were Norma Geisler and Ross Rhodes. So Dr. Rhodes was the chaplain for Billy Graham Evangelistic Association for a number of years, as well as a pastor. And, of course, Dr. Geisler was largely responsible, I would say, for the renaissance of revitalization of apologetics in the evangelical world, 70s and 80s. So when SES was started, there were very few seminaries that did apologetics at all, much less worked apologetics into everything that they teach. So they saw the need for more events that focused on apologetics, and using apologetics in service to evangelism, because everything we do ultimately points to the gospel and is in service to the gospel and pointing people to the gospel. So now there are apologetics conferences and those kind of things, anywhere and everywhere of all shapes and sizes. But I think what's unique about ours is just the sheer number of speakers that we have, and breakout sessions that we offer, able to bring in a lot of the top thinkers, in addition to showcasing our own professors and students and alumni who do a lot of our breakout sessions, who, of course, we consider some of the top Christian thinkers in the country as well. So it's been a benefit to the school, but hopefully it's been a bigger benefit to the church at large.
Does it surprise either of you gentlemen that the percentage of clergy and the like have such a low percentage of people who actually have a solid understanding, comprehension, and adherence to the historic Christian faith?
Paul, it doesn't surprise me, but it certainly saddens me. I was sharing with some folks the other day, and my statement was this, and I don't mean to be hypercritical, but I said, if you really want an institution or an entity to blame for the condition in America, you need to blame the church as it exists in America, not Christ Church, but the institutional church in America, because we failed. And obviously one of the reasons why we're failing is our leadership has failed. And so everywhere you turn in our culture today, we're being bombarded with anti-Christian information. We're beginning to see certainly persecution rear its ugly head in our nation. But again, we're not surprised by it, nor are we intimidated by that here at Southern Evangelical Seminary. Jesus himself told us that in this world you're going to have trouble, but be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. So that's our point of view in this.
Was the transition from working on the conference from a number of years to directing it much of a surprise or much of a culture shock for you, Adam?
Well, I remember it was 2007, 2008 when I was first a student at SES and attended my first national conference. And of course, I thought I was a kid in a candy store, I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And I've been attending ever since. I certainly didn't think at that time that I would ever have the privilege and honor of being in charge of it to a large extent. But I've had a lot of people come before me that have laid a very solid framework and done a lot of the groundwork to make this event possible. So I pretty much just pick up where they left off and, just try to do a couple of new things each year and keep it a little fresh. And people seem to enjoy it and still get a benefit out of it. So hopefully we can continue that this year.
Judge, again, I understand that among the places you've accumulated your education over the course of time was in fact the seminary itself with a Doctor of Ministry. What was your perspective when you were beginning your work on that degree in that way? The presence of a conference like this also part of the picture?
Well, I didn't attend the conference until after I became a student, and I'll have to confess to you, I tell this story almost laughingly because Norm Geisler and Ross Rhodes both became mentors to me, and I'm so appreciative of that. But I was having, Paul, a little bit of a crisis of confidence in my faith. I don't know that I was falling away from my faith, but I certainly worried about things like biblical inerrancy and some of the basis of the faith that now I hold dear. And so I came down to Charlotte and did a cold call on Southern Evangelical Seminary, and just to take maybe one course to learn a little bit more about what I believed, and happened to run into Norm Geisler. And I laugh about it because Norm took me back into his office, and by the time I left, I had signed up for the Doctor of Ministry program. And so he was very influential in that. And I think within a short period of time, not only did Norm have me attending the conferences, but he had me doing breakout sessions in the conference. And so that's how I came to be. And we've got stories. We hear stories every year, Paul, of folks whose life are changed because of their attending this conference. And it really takes sometimes difficult theological concepts and applies them in a very practical way. And I think that's one of the differences in our conference. We talk about serious matters, and we talk about complicated matters but yet we bring them down to earth that can have a lasting and a changing effect in the life of individuals who attend.
Further details on this conference on tomorrow's broadcast. Today we've been with Judge Phil Ginn and Adam Tucker representing Southern Evangelical Seminary. For further information, call us at 860-346-1049. Opinions expressed are those of the participants, not necessarily those of the staff or management of the station. I'm Paul Kretschmer on the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from 104.9 WIHS.